Hey friends, Christy here with Christy and the Turkeys here with Little Wits Ranch. Hi boys. And today we are going to talk about planting in June for the fall garden. Now, I said this in my last video, but a loose rule of thumb is that you plant in June for the fall and July for the winter or overwintering garden. Now, of course, there are some exceptions and different things like that. Some crops are quick growing, like say lettuce, and some crops take a lot longer, say Brussels sprouts. And so again, there are some caveats, but in general, June planting will generally have fall harvest, whereas July planting will generally have winter overwintering harvest. And there are a lot of crops that overlap in what you can plant in June and what you can plant in July, and a few in August as well, which I know sounds really early. I remember one of my first years gardening, it was September, and I was like, oh, I want to try my hand at a fall and winter garden, and I was reading Elliot Coleman's 4-season gardening book. I don't remember what it's called, or year-round. I don't know, he's got a couple. I own all of his books. But anyways, and so I went to look up at different things, and nothing I had seeded was successful. And I realized that you would think that September is appropriate, but it's really not unless you're growing like spinach or whatever. You know, pretty much from there on, you're looking at garlic in October, November, and that's a little bit kind of it, unless you're overwintering something. But anyways, so today's video, I've got my handy list so I don't forget. Today's video is about things that you want to plant in June to harvest in the fall, so that way we can feed ourselves more, grow food, or whatever your reasoning for gardening is. And I will note I'll go through my list, some of the items, and I'll say it right away if they are. Some items you want to plant earlier in the month, some items you want to plant in the middle of the month, and some items you want to plant in the end of the month. And a lot of those are generally due to heat and heat cycles, you know, where the plant should be developmentally in July, which is usually our hottest month, you know, July, August, whatever. The heat wave usually comes early July. But, and then I'll also, after that, I'll go through a list of things that you won't be planting in June. And it's a short list. I mean, there's some obvious ones like tomatoes. I didn't put that on the list. It's things that you would think you would grow that you really can't. And some of them I do grow, but I'll get to that in a second. So, well, more than a second, but okay, here's the list. So again, this is for June planting for fall harvest. Okay, so you've got bush beans and pole beans. It's not too late for that. Beets, broccoli, and Brussels sprouts. For Brussels sprouts, they are hi boys, they're so cute. They are one of the longest growing crops. And so those you want to have planted by like the 20th of June. So if you are planting Brussels sprouts, I would do that right away. Cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, boys, it's okay. There's a crow around and they're not sure that they're enjoying the crow being around. It's okay. I'm right here. Okay, cauliflower is going to be mid-June. And then there's cucumbers, which also cucumbers are another one that you want to get planted by mid-June, or by the 20th of June. And so for me personally, I just start my one batch of cucumbers. But depending if you're really prone to like powdery mildew or really hot, or your first batch of cucumbers isn't going so well, or you just want to grow more, because why not? You can start a second succession now and enjoy them into the fall. Kohlrabi is another one. That one you're going to want to wait till end of month, just because kohlrabi is sensitive to heat and stuff like that. And so you want to get it so where it's really little when we go through our heat wave, and then it can continue to develop into the fall when the temperatures start to go down. Then there's, I will say lettuce is going to be on my next list, which is on the no list. And I will get to that because I've got a special thing on that. but that one is actually best to wait till August. So no lettuce. There's a caveat, but I'll get to that. And then peas, those are going to be end of month, like the very end of the month. And then potatoes, rutabagas, scallions. Scallions are going to be mid-June. Summer squash, which are your zucchinis or your yellow squash. And then lastly is Swiss chard, and that's also going to be end of month. So again, this is the list for June planting for fall harvest. So I had mentioned earlier that there are some things that are on the no list. Now, obviously, you can always do anything you want and experiment and try stuff. I do that all the time. You know, there's also things like different microclimates. Or are you more south of me, more north of me, east? Are you in a different state altogether, a different country? You know, all of that really depends how much sun you get, things like that. And also the weather that's going to happen this year, you know. And but June 21st is our summer solstice, and that will be our longest day of the year. And after that, the days will start getting shorter, and your plants know that. We as humans notice it as well, but our plants definitely notice that. And so the shorter days in a lot of plants, like alliums, onions, stuff like that, trigger like, oh, cold weather will be coming at some point. I should start to get to my developmental stage, or reproductive stage, sorry, which is, you know, developing a flower, going to seed, bolting, whatever. Usually those are the things we don't want our vegetables to do because they can take on a stronger flavor. Not inedible, just a little bit stronger. I don't mind it, a lot of people do. So here's my no list. And this list is exclusively based on length of hours in the day, like sunlight hours, and temperature. And so these are going to be your sensitive crops. These are also the crops that you can plant the latest into the year and the earliest in the year. And it would make sense that, you know, nothing is favorable at all times. And so that's going to be spinach. Spinach is, if you plant spinach right now or anytime in June and even into July, for the most part, of course, it does depend on your area and stuff like that, but it's basically going to go to seed right away. You're not going to get the spinach or spinach salads that you're hoping for or anything like that. So it's best, you can always try it, but I would highly recommend, especially if you're a new gardener, just hold off and wait. Radish is another one, mustard greens, cilantro, and Asian greens. All of those ones, again, those are the things that we're planting right away at the early spring and the late summer, early fall for colder weather. It would make sense that those things don't like the high heats of summer. And it's actually funny because cilantro doesn't love hot weather. But I think cilantro is always associated with, because we've got tacos and salsa and all those things, especially salsa, you know, tomatoes, onions, peppers, those are all summer crops. Cilantro does not like the summer. If you're wanting to grow any of these crops that are on the no list, and I'm about to get to lettuce, you just have to give special sensitivity to it. But you can't throw lettuce seeds out into the open field that gets full sun. You know what, we're getting like 16 whatever hours of sunlight a day, and we're only going to get warmer from here. That seed's not going to do well. If you are determined to grow spinach or radishes or whatever, find a shady spot, a cool spot with a breeze, you know, away from things that reflect, not in black pots or anything like that, and you can make it happen, which does bring me to lettuce. So one of the hardest challenges for me as a farmer is growing lettuce year round. I can try to explain to people that it's not optimal for growing lettuce in the middle of the summer, but honestly, nobody cares. Everyone wants lettuce or salads and things like that, and I totally get it. And I think with the grocery stores, we're not really used to eating seasonally. And so I am, well, not forced, but I do choose to grow lettuce year round, which is exceptionally difficult. So in the summer, like I will be seeding lettuce in the no seed lettuce time. I don't do the other stuff, but I do the lettuce. And so I worked on trying to find the most heat resistant varieties, and I run the sprinkler on them more often to cool them down. I try to put them either in the shade or behind crops that will like shield it out. Like last summer I had my corn and then I had my lettuce right behind it, because that way the corn could provide kind of some shade during the day and stuff like that. And when I would harvest it, I'd harvest it first thing in the morning, put it in cold water, switch it to a new cold tub, and then another cold tub, because the flavor of lettuce, I don't know if you've ever had lettuce in the heat of summer, but it is so bitter. The latex comes out. That's why you want to harvest very early, is because as it warms up, the latex moves from the roots or stem or whatever out into the leaves. And it's that white stuff that you see, and oh, that is bitter. I tell you what, I could not sell latexy lettuce. It is way too strong. And so there's a lot of precautions, but that's also why lettuce is at a premium. You know, lettuce is one of the most expensive, or is the most expensive thing that we sell on the farm, because I know it may not seem like it, but it's actually a lot of work. So if you are also determined or need to grow lettuce in the middle of the summer, it is doable. It just requires extra attention. And, you know, and sometimes things happen, like after the heat wave, I basically have to let everything go. And, you know, I'll tell my customer like, oh, it'll be, you know, a couple weeks, my lettuce got wiped out, or do you happen to use a lot of ranch dressing, kind of a deal, you know? So anyway, so to recap, there are a lot of crops that you can plant in June, whether it's the beginning, middle, or end of June. And there are a lot of crops that you can start from seed, whether you start the seed in the ground or put them in trays or soil blocks or whatever outside in a greenhouse or inside. I think it's better to start them outside, but it's up to you, and depending on if you want to do the hardening off or whatever. And for that way you can have a harvest in the fall, which is always awesome. I'll be doing a video for things to plant in July for winter and overwintering. And I also have a garden tour coming up, including the greenhouse, and things have been behind. But anyways, if you're still watching, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for your support. If you wouldn't mind throwing a like, I would really appreciate that. And a like for the turkey boys. Anyways, have a great day. Bye.